Hello, are you here for Thanksgiving? Well, there is certainly plenty for us to be giving thanks for. Why don't you come into the kitchen and we'll start giving thanks. I bet you what you would really like is a good slice of pie. Come on in. Welcome to the kitchen. Some say that the kitchen is the heart of the home and where fellowship really starts to happen. For a lot of people, Thanksgiving is really just a meal. For us at the Church of Christ, we're a family that likes to gather, but for us it's more than just a meal. It's about what we can say in appreciation for all the things that God has given to us. If this were a meal though, all of our blessings would make it a very full meal, wouldn't it? And even as full a meal as it is, you know what the best part of a full meal is? That's right, it's dessert. So we're going to skip straight to the end and we're going to go to dessert. But this is a family meal. And so if we're going to have a family meal, it makes sense to do it, well, as a family. This is my daughter. She likes to help me cook. You like to cook in the kitchen, don't you, Zipporah?
Yes.
She likes to make things and she likes to
Eat
things. So we're going to enjoy doing some cooking and eating. She's going to help me get the dessert ready. When we talk about dessert for Thanksgiving dinner, there's only one thing we are talking about. When we say dessert, we mean
pie.
That's right, pie. All kinds of pie. Zipporah, why don't you tell them what they need for the pie crust?
Yes. You'll need 1 cup of really cold butter, which is 226 grams if you're measuring grams. You'll need 2.5 cups of flour, which is 300 grams if you're measuring in grams, half a teaspoon of salt, and later we'll add 1/4 cup to 2/3 cup of ice cold water to make the dough.
Now, what's good about these ingredients is you may already have them at home. And if we're honest, these are kind of plain, very simple, nondescript ingredients, aren't they? Let's start with the butter. We're going to get the butter, please. We're going to have our 1 cup of butter, which we're going to dice into small bits. And while I do that, Zipporah is going to measure out 2.5 cups of flour.
That makes sense.
There we go. Some people like to mix their butter with lard.
What's lard?
Lard, it's another kind of rendered fat. Now you can get animal fat, of course, but there's also vegetarian fat if you prefer that. Some like to make a mixture of it, but I'll be honest with you. I find pie crust to be a bit boring. The fun part, if you ask me, isn't the crust, it's what's inside. You know, it's what's inside that makes it special, makes it different. You can have the same crust, the same ordinary outside, but something unique on the inside. It's exactly like people. In fact, God says that you and I are like jars of clay. Jars of clay that hold inside of us a very special gift. His Holy Spirit is on all of His Christians, all of His believers who have given their lives to Him are filled with His Spirit. We got 2.5 cups. All right, we're going to cut those 2.5 cups in. Going to add the flour. And our recipe calls for half a teaspoon of salt, but the butter is already salted, so I'm only going to do a pinch of salt instead. I'm going to take 2 knives and we're going to start cutting it in. We're going to make what looks like breadcrumbs, so this takes quite a while.
Some people use their hands
to rub it in. You want to have a go? All right, well, you work on that. While Zipporah works on rubbing in the butter and cutting it together to make the pastry, let me remind you from 2 Corinthians chapter 4, what I referred to earlier. It says, "But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us." He goes on to say that we are afflicted in every way, but not crushed, perplexed, but not driven to despair, persecuted, but not forsaken, struck down, but not destroyed. You know, he's reminding us that there are difficult times. There are hard times. Maybe you're living through hard times right now. Hard times of illness, hard times financially. Maybe hard times in your marriage or in your parenting. Maybe your siblings are a problem for you. Maybe you have elderly parents and you're beginning to see them fade. Maybe you're not even certain how you're going to pay the bills at the end of the week. You know, all of these things, he says, are limited. This body of flesh is a bit like the crust. It looks kind of normal and ordinary. We might think of ourselves as a little bit nondescript. But what can make us marvelous is the Holy Spirit inside. And more than that, it gives us this promise that no matter how difficult it becomes, there's always hope when we have God. That's one of the things that we give thanks for, is that he saw us even in our normal everyday state. And he blessed us by giving us his Holy Spirit. I'm reminded of Hebrews chapter 11, when it talks about some of the great heroes of the faith. One of them is Moses. And it says that when Moses was born, his parents hid him for 3 months because they saw that he was no ordinary child. I've seen some cute babies, and in fact, I think all babies are beautiful. Even the ugly babies are beautiful. But when Moses was born, they knew and saw something in him that would be of great value and great worth. Now, I think every parent thinks that their child is beautiful and child is of great worth. But it says to me that they didn't just see what Moses was. They also saw the potential of what he could be. God looks down on us and does the same thing. He doesn't just see who we are and what we're going through. He also sees what we could be and where we're going. It's easy to get a little bit blindsided. And a crust without a filling isn't much of a dessert. But the crust is essential. It's like having an empty space that can be filled. So we're going to start with that empty space, and then we're going to give it filling.
Ice cold water, tablespoon. Just going to mix it while we're adding the water.
And what that'll do is it'll help it begin to bind together. As it chills the butter a little bit, it brings it back together.
When the water evaporates in the oven, it makes the flaky layers in your pie crust.
The flaky bits, what people like. At least our family likes to be flaky. All right, we're bringing our dough back together, and if you make it a little bit too wet, you'll need to add some flour. Try to avoid that though, because it changes the flavor and the balance. And now we've got our dough. We're going to kind of press it out, and we're going to put it in the fridge for 20 minutes. All right, so we have chilled our dough for about 20 minutes, and we're going to divide it in half because there's enough crust here for 2 separate pies. We're going to lightly flour the surface so that we can roll it out on the table. All right.
And we're going to try and evenly roll it out, but it's not that easy. So the easiest method is...
The easiest way to roll it out evenly, of course, is to...
buy it ready-made.
If this saves you time, when you're being thankful about the things you have,
be thankful that you can save time.
That convenience is also something we can be thankful of. All right, so I'm going to quarter fold. You notice that I folded it in half, and then I'm folding it in half again. And then we're going to get our pie pan, and we're going to lightly spray the pie pan so that it doesn't stick. This is optional. If you have non-stick pie pans, you won't need to do this. Squirt me up, baby. Ooh. Oh.
I think I should.
All right, and then we're going to lay it out in quarters and unfold it.
Yes, this is
so that it covers it completely. Make sure you press it down into the pan.
Now comes my favorite part.
What is your favorite part?
Poking the pie.
Poking the pie. First, we're going
And
to
cutting the edges.
do a little bit of trimming and trim off what pokes over there. And then if you have a fork, what you can do, or
Find a fork.
there are different ways, of course, that you can
Got it.
do the edges, but one of the easy ways
Is that
is to take a fork
with roll?
and press around the edges
It's not.
to make a nice crinkle effect. There's our crust. As we have learned, the crust can be plain because what fills it is what makes it most important.
And then
And then
you poke it.
give it a nice poking so that it doesn't bubble up as easily when it is baking. And now you are ready to fill that with your pie filling and bake it. We hope to see you again when we have a chance to fill the pie crust in our next video. We're going to start adding different fillings to our pie crusts. Until then, stay blessed.
Stay thankful.